Mommy, it hurts to sit. Those 5 little words changed my whole world. Hi, my name is Claire Williams. I'm 32 years old and I'm a single mom. I live with my daughter Ava in a small, quiet neighborhood. It's just the two of us. She's only 4 years old, but she's my whole life, my little sunshine. Ava is the kind of child who hugs you for no reason. She sings to her dolls, draws hearts on every paper, and tells me, I love you 100 times a day. She's kind, soft-spoken, and very smart for her age. She even taught her teddy bear how to say sorry when he steps on someone's toes. So when I got her into Blueberry Hill Preschool, I thought we had made it. It was the top preschool in our city. Big playground, clean classrooms, teachers who wore bright smiles. The school sent emails with pictures of kids playing happily, painting with their hands, running around laughing. Everything looked perfect. At first, Ava was excited. She picked out her own little pink backpack and packed her favorite toy bunny, Mr. Waffles, every morning. She would wave at me from the classroom door and shout, Bye, Mommy, I'll miss you. But then something changed. It started small. One morning, she held onto my leg and didn't want to let go. Mommy, can I stay home today? She asked in a tiny voice. I laughed and kissed her forehead. Just 5 more hours, baby. You'll be back before you know it. She nodded slowly, but her eyes looked sad. I thought maybe she just missed me. Then, the next day, she cried, full tears. She said her tummy hurt. But the moment I said we'd go to the doctor, she said she was fine. That's when I started to wonder. When I picked her up from school that day, I noticed she was quiet. No smile, no stories. She just sat in the car, holding Mr. Waffles tight. I asked, Did you have a good day? She shrugged and said, It was okay. Something was off. That night, I emailed her teacher, Miss Rachel. She replied quickly. Ava is having trouble following rules. She struggles with group activities and doesn't always listen. She's also very emotional and cries easily. We're working on helping her adjust, but honestly, she's a bit difficult. Difficult? My Ava? It didn't sound like her at all. But Miss Rachel was the professional. Maybe Ava just needed time to settle in. So I tried to stay calm. I gave her hugs, asked soft questions, gave her her favorite snacks, and sang her to sleep. But the next week, Ava started waking up in the middle of the night, crying in her bed. One night, I walked in and heard her whisper, Please don't pull my chair. I froze. What did you say, honey? I asked. She blinked at me, confused, and said, Nothing. I had a bad dream. My stomach turned, but I didn't push. I thought maybe she was just adjusting. The next morning, she didn't want to wear her school shoes. She said they made her walk too fast. Then she said she hated lunchtime because it was too quiet. I didn't understand what that meant, but she refused to say more. I felt something was wrong, but every time I asked the school, they said the same thing. Ava is sensitive. She cries a lot. She doesn't like to follow structure. It made me question myself. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe I was babying her too much. Maybe I was being dramatic. The school said they were professionals after all. I didn't want to be that mom, the one who complains about everything and doesn't trust the teachers. So I stayed quiet. But then came the day I will never forget. It was a Friday. I picked Ava up a bit early because I had finished work ahead of time. When she saw me, she walked slowly to the car, her head down. Hi, sweetie, I said, opening the door. She didn't speak. She climbed in, buckled herself, and just stared out the window. As I started the car, she turned to me and whispered, Mommy, it hurts to sit. I looked at her. "What do you mean?" She looked down at her lap. "My bottom hurts." My heart began to race. When we got home, I took her straight to the bathroom and helped her change. When I looked, I felt sick. There were red marks, like someone had grabbed her. Some looked like fingerprints. Some looked like she had been sitting on a hard, cold floor for a long time. I dropped to my knees. "Ava, baby, what happened? Tell Mommy." She held Mr. Waffles close and said, "I didn't eat fast enough. Miss Rachel said I was being slow, so she made me sit on the cold floor during story time. When I tried to get back on my chair, she pulled it out and I fell. Everyone laughed. I couldn't breathe. My little girl, my baby, humiliated, hurt, and no one told me." Tears filled my eyes, but I didn't want to scare her. I hugged her tightly. "I believe you, Ava, and Mommy's going to fix this." But inside, I was shaking with rage. The school had lied. They had blamed her. They had called her difficult just to cover what was really happening. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the edge of my bed, watching Ava breathe as she slept peacefully. I kept hearing her whisper, "Mommy, it hurts to sit." The next morning, I made a choice. I would no longer stay quiet. I was going to protect my child, no matter what, even if it meant war. The next day, I got Ava ready like usual. But something inside me had changed. I wasn't nervous anymore. I wasn't confused. I was angry. I was done being polite. I dressed Ava in her favorite yellow dress with the tiny butterflies. She didn't smile. She just looked down at her shoes the whole time. Before we left, I knelt down in front of her. "Ava," I said gently, "does anyone at school hurt you?" She looked at me with her big eyes, and for a second I thought she would cry. But she just nodded, very slowly. That was all I needed. We drove to school, and as soon as I parked the car, I didn't take her to the classroom. I took her straight to the front office. Principal Jane was sitting behind the front desk smiling at her computer. She looked up and said, "Oh, good morning, Mrs. Williams. Is everything all right?" "No," I said. "Everything is not all right." Her smile faded. "Would you like to speak in my office?" I nodded, holding Ava's hand tightly. Inside the office, Principal Jane offered us water. I refused. Ava sat on the couch hugging Mr. Waffles. "I want to talk about Miss Rachel," I said. Principal Jane folded her hands. "What about her?" I took a deep breath. My daughter told me that Miss Rachel made her sit on the cold floor as punishment. She also told me that she pulled a chair out from under her, and I saw the marks on her body. She said, "She's hurting." Principal Jane blinked, then gave a tight smile. "We've had no reports of any physical incidents. Sometimes children can exaggerate, and as we've discussed before, Ava has been having difficulty adjusting." There it was again. Difficult, like it was my daughter's fault. "I'm not here to talk about behavior," I said firmly. "I'm here to talk about abuse." She blinked again. "Abuse is a very serious word, Mrs. Williams." "Yes, it is. And that's why I'm calling the police." I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. Right there in front of her, I dialed 911. Principal Jane stood up quickly. "Mrs. Williams, please, there's no need for that." I raised my hand to stop her. "No more excuses. No more, she's sensitive or she's difficult. My daughter is hurt, and I won't let this go." The 911 operator answered, and I calmly explained that I needed an officer at Blueberry Hill Preschool to report a possible child mistreatment case. By the time the call ended, Principal Jane looked pale. She tried to talk again, But I ignored her. I sat next to Ava and held her hand. About 20 minutes later, a tall man in uniform walked into the school. "Officer Daniels," he said, flashing his badge, "I received a call about a possible child abuse case." "Yes," I said. "Right this way." I brought him into the office, and Principal Jane followed, looking nervous. "I want to make something very clear. I'm not here to ruin reputations. I'm here to protect my child." Officer Daniels nodded. "Let's start with Ava." He knelt down gently in front of her. "Hi, sweetheart. My name is Officer Daniels. Can I ask you a few questions?" Ava looked at me. I gave her a small nod. She turned to him and said quietly, "Okay." He spoke slowly, gently. He asked what happened. Ava told him about the cold floor, the chair, the laughing, the mean words. Then she pulled down her tights a little to show him the marks. I could see his jaw tighten. "Thank you, Ava," he said. "You're very brave." He stood up and turned to Principal Jane. "I'd like to see the classroom and the security footage from the past 2 weeks." Principal Jane stuttered. We usually don't show footage to parents unless—" "I'm not a parent. I'm a police officer, and I'm not asking." She swallowed and nodded quickly. I followed them down the hall to a small security room. A man sitting at the desk pulled up the videos. "Let's see last Friday," Officer Daniels said. The footage loaded. There it was. Ava's classroom. We saw Miss Rachel walking around barking orders. The kids were sitting on the carpet. Ava was at the back, holding Mr. Waffles. Then it happened. We watched as Ava tried to sit in her chair, and Miss Rachel yanked it away. Ava fell straight to the floor, landing hard. The other kids laughed. Miss Rachel didn't help her. She just pointed to the floor and made her sit there for the rest of story time. My hands turned into fists. My heart broke all over again. Then Officer Daniels said, "Let's go back a few more days." Day after day, we saw little things. Miss Rachel yanking Ava's arm, forcing her to sit alone, rolling her eyes when Ava cried, ignoring her during group time. And not once did anyone step in. Officer Daniels turned to Principal Jane. "I'm opening a report. I'll need to speak with the teacher and collect more footage, and I'll also be contacting Child Protective Services." Principal Jane tried to speak, but no words came out. As we left the room, Officer Daniels looked at me. "You did the right thing," he said. I nodded, my throat tight. "Thank you for believing her." He looked at Ava and smiled. "You're very strong, little one." Ava smiled just a tiny bit. That night, I tucked her into bed like always. She looked at me and asked, "Mommy, am I still going to that school tomorrow?" I shook my head. "No, baby. Never again." She smiled wider this time. Then she closed her eyes. And I sat beside her, watching her sleep, feeling one thing above all: fury. They hurt my daughter, lied to my face, called her difficult when all she ever did was try to be good. But now the truth was out, and I was just getting started.
I told her everything, not in anger, but in truth. I even gave her permission to use Ava's drawings. She had drawn a picture of a girl sitting on the floor with tears and a mean-looking teacher behind her. The article came out 2 days later. Mother exposes hidden abuse at prestigious preschool. It spread like wildfire. Parents were angry. News vans started parking outside Blueberry Hill Preschool. Teachers refused to speak. Principal Jane stopped showing up to work. And Ms. Rachel? She was officially fired. Not just let go. Fired with a report attached to her teaching license. She would never work with kids again. It felt like victory, but it also felt strange. I didn't feel happy. I felt tired. Because no matter what happened now, Ava had already been hurt. One evening, as I sat beside her while she drew at the kitchen table, she asked, "Mommy, is Miss Rachel going to jail?" I blinked. "No, honey, but she's not allowed to teach anymore." Ava thought about that for a second. Then she said something that broke my heart and healed it all at once. "Good. Now no other kids have to be scared like me." That's when I knew I did the right thing. But it wasn't over yet. The school tried to cover things up. They released a cold statement that said an incident was under review and that staff would receive further training. But no one believed them. Parents pulled their children out. More stories came forward. A little boy had told his dad that Miss Rachel made him stand in the hallway for an hour without his shoes. Another girl had wet herself because she was too scared to ask for the bathroom. They all said the same thing. No one listened. Until now. One day, I got a call from the school district. They told me the preschool would be shutting down temporarily while they brought in a new leadership team and reviewed every staff member. It was more than I had expected. I looked over at Ava. She was building a Lego house, humming a little song. She looked peaceful again. Later that night, I lay in bed and cried. Not because I was sad, but because I finally felt like I had done my job. I protected her. I believed her. And even though I couldn't take away what had happened, I made sure it would never happen again. Not to her, not to anyone. The school shut down for 2 whole weeks. They said they needed time to rebuild trust. But for many of us parents, that trust was already broken. During that time, I kept Ava home with me. We played board games, made pancakes in the shape of stars, and built the tallest pillow fort in our living room. Every day, I saw a little more light come back into her eyes. She even laughed again. One morning, while we were painting with watercolors, Ava looked up and said, "Mommy, my tummy doesn't feel scared anymore." I put my brush down and looked at her. "What do you mean, baby?" She smiled a soft smile. "I don't feel scared to eat anymore or sit." That was when I knew we were healing. But the world outside hadn't forgotten. News outlets kept covering the story. More parents spoke out. Some were angry they hadn't noticed the signs sooner. Others were grateful that someone finally said something. And even though I never asked for it, people started calling me a hero. I wasn't a hero. I was just a mom. A mom who listened. A mom who didn't stay quiet. Then one day I got a letter in the mail from the school district. It was official. Principal Jane had resigned. It said she failed to report staff misconduct, ignored parent concerns, and had allowed an unsafe environment to continue. I sat on the couch holding that letter for a long time. I remembered her face the day I told her I was calling 911. How calm she tried to be, how fake her smile looked. And now she was gone. It felt like justice. Miss Rachel, too, was banned from working in any school again. Her name had been added to a national child safety database.
That meant no other child would sit in a cold corner while she ignored their tears. No one else would feel invisible. And Ava, she was starting fresh. A new school had reached out to me, a smaller one known for being gentle with kids who needed extra love. I visited the classroom. The walls weren't just colorful, they were full of drawings made by the children. The teachers smiled, but it felt real this time. I met Ava's new teacher, Miss Lane. She bent down to Ava's level and said, "Hi, sweet girl. You can sit anywhere you like." Ava looked at me. I nodded. She picked a seat by the window and placed Mr. Waffles right beside her. She was ready. Later that afternoon, as I picked her up, Miss Lane came out with her. She made 2 new friends, she told me with a smile, and she even helped a little boy who dropped his snack. I looked at Ava. Her cheeks were pink, her eyes were shining. I hadn't seen her this happy in weeks. That night, before bedtime, Ava gave me a drawing. It showed 2 stick figures holding hands, one tall, one small, and above them were the words, "Mommy keeps me safe." I cried holding that paper, not because I was sad, but because I knew I had done the one thing every mother promises to do. I had protected my baby. The next week, I was invited to speak at a small parent meeting, just a handful of moms and dads who wanted to know what to look out for, how to spot red flags, how to ask better questions, how to believe their children. I told them my story. I told them how Ava had whispered, "Mommy, it hurts to sit." How I almost believed the school instead of my child. How I nearly missed the signs. And how calling 911, as scary as it felt, had saved more than just one little girl. At the end, one mom raised her hand. "How did you stay strong through it all?" I thought for a moment. Then I answered, "I didn't always feel strong. I was scared, confused, and angry. But my child didn't need me to be perfect. She just needed me to listen and to believe her. And when I did that, the strength came on its own." The room was quiet. A few people wiped tears. And in that moment, I felt peace. A few months passed. Life felt normal again. One sunny afternoon, Ava came running in from school. "Mommy, guess what?" she shouted. "What, baby?" "I was chosen to be the line leader. Miss Lane said I was brave and kind." I picked her up and spun her around. "That's because you are brave and kind." She giggled. "I told everyone Mr. Waffles helped me." I laughed, my heart full. We had come a long way. And even though I wished it had never happened, I knew this truth. They tried to break her spirit. They tried to silence my voice, but they forgot one thing. You never, ever mess with a mother's love.